Luke chapter 4 and verse 16. So he came to Nazareth where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. And he was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord." Then he closed the book and gave it back to the attendant and sat down. And the eyes of all who were in the synagogue were fixed on him. And he began to say to them, "Today the scripture is fulfilled in your hearing." So all bore witness to him and marveled at the gracious words which proceeded out of his mouth. And they said, "Is this not Joseph's son?" I want to start a new series, and I've entitled this morning's chat, "Beyond the Threshold." Beyond the Threshold. There's some things you can manage in life and some things you can't. You have more influence over yourself than you have over what life throws at you. If you've been alive for anything more than 5 minutes, you'll realize as you walk down the journey and the road of life, things are going to happen. That is par for the course with life. The thing with it is, how do you handle what comes in your direction? How do you handle the things that come to challenge you? We have an opportunity. We started a new year, and I was thinking about this message because stepping into 18, I think this should be the best year ever for you. Both of us. This should be the best year ever for you. Every time you hit a new year, you should embrace the best year ever for me. Because you know why? God is working in your life. And when God is working in your life, He's opening up ideas and opportunities, and He's showing you new truth, and He's putting you in new places, and He's showing you new opportunities and things that He wants to do with you, and He's fixing some of the stuff that goes with us, and He's helping us leave some baggage behind, and He's moving us forward. So every time you've lost some baggage and you have new vistas and you have new vision and new opportunity, you have an opportunity to embrace a new year. Good grief. No wonder it was bad this morning. Is it a cold or what's the deal? Good hat. Good grief. I didn't think that wasn't even the low point. Good gracious. When you make New Year's resolutions, nobody makes New Year's resolutions about the pinnacles and the high points of their life. If you listen to people who make resolutions, it's about things they want to change in their life, things that are problematic, things that are challenging, things that they don't really care for, and they sit and say, "I think that this could be better." What they're looking for is they're looking for their life to be elevated and the bar of their life to be raised so they can step into something new. I want to talk to you about raising the bar in your life. I want to talk to you about addressing some of the problems and the issues in your life. And God has got a plan for you. God wants to do something. God is all about influence. We talk about bringing heaven to earth. And we love the idea of bringing heaven to earth, because when we speak about bringing heaven to earth, what we're talking about is we're talking about taking God's design and applying it in the context in which we have influence, which is our life. And when we're able to take God's design and bring it so that it has influence in our life, it brings about transformation and it brings about change. It brings about opportunity. It brings about hope. So we like to talk about bringing heaven to earth. When the disciples said to Jesus, "Teach us how to pray," part of what He said is, "Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven." Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. There are two things. If you want to experience heaven in your world, in your place that you have influence, you're going to have to learn how to introduce His kingdom into your world. If you don't know how to introduce His kingdom into your world, what are you going to use to have influence in your circumstance and your situations? God's design is that what we do is we take His kingdom, we take His promises, we take what He's made available to us, and we introduce them into our life so that it can bring about change. What we do usually as people is we default to our own understanding. And there is merit to that. Hopefully, you've got a little bit of life experience. And when you get a bit of life experience, it makes you pretty practical about things. And most people, as we move along, we get a little bit more adept and more experienced at handling life situations. So there is such a thing as natural wisdom and understanding. And it's good to bring that to bear. Always, if you're smart, use it. The thing about it is this: if you're looking for an opportunity to introduce power, if you're looking for opportunity to introduce authority into your situation, you're never going to find it in yourself. You're going to find it in the kingdom. So if you're looking for power and you're looking for authority, you're looking for influence, you're going to have to refer to the kingdom. Where is the kingdom? The kingdom is within me. Okay, so that's part of the problem. Part of the challenge that I find so many Christians have is that I love the idea of heaven on earth. I love the idea and the concept of God's design being applied in my circumstance and situation. I like the fact that God has made available opportunity for me to move into a dimension where I can use His authority and His power to bring influence into my situations. But what I'm trying to understand is, what is the practice of that? The theory can get me excited, but the practice is what's going to bring about change. There are too many Christians who get excited about the theory of God. And we love all the potential, but it's not, the biggest challenge we have is, how do I walk into that? We're in the world, but we're not of the world. We're in the world, but we're not of the world. Have you ever thought about that? You're in the world, but you're not of the world. You know what part of the challenge is with so many Christians? They're in the world and they live like the world. We're in the world, but we're not of the world. What it's saying to us is a couple of things. First of all, it's pointing out the fact that our nature as a new creation has been changed. When the moment you got born again, the life of God came and dwelt on the inside of you. And so you are changed. You are made new. It's not only talking about the fact that your nature has been made new. What it's saying is, as a result of that, the implication is that we should live differently because we are not what we used to be. Because we are changed, because we are made new, what God's saying is, my life inhabits you. My life, my power, my disposition, my attitude to life is all alive on the inside of you. What I'm looking for you to do is, I'm looking for you to plug into the kingdom on the inside of you, and I'm looking for you to introduce it into your circumstance and situation. Carter and Vivian like going to school. They love it. They're happy. They like the challenge. They like the kids. They like the friends. Colton, every single morning, it's like rote. It's like clockwork. You can stand in the kitchen and you know it's going to happen. It's time for school. Why school? I hate school. There's no point to school. We should just stay at home. I told you the story about him being homeschooled. He decided that it was a good idea to be homeschooled instead of going to school. So we said, well, why is that? You do understand you do the same work at home that you would do at school. No. Homeschooling is just about living, and you learn as you live. I said, well, it doesn't quite work that way. The point is this: they go to school, and they mix with their friends, and they run around with their friends, and they put themselves in an environment that is designed for them to grow. When the teacher comes into the classroom, the teacher is in the classroom, but she's not of the classroom. She's of the faculty. There's a big difference. Because she comes into the environment, what ends up happening is, who she is different to who they are. She has more training, she has more education, she has more experience, and she has more authority. As a result of that, when she comes into the environment, she's able to command and influence the situation in a way that people who come in and are part of are not able to. She's in it, but she's not of it. That's what God's called us to. You're in the world, but you're not of the world. You are in amongst all the rest of us. But we're not to act like that. We are to behave differently. Why? Because we are supposed to be people who live from our kingdom identity and our kingdom citizenship. And we should be people who walk into the situation, and we are teachers in that we're looking for opportunity to have influence in situations. We're about bringing about change where things don't resemble what we believe is God's perfect design for them. Does that make sense? Your influence, what constitutes your identity defines your influence. What constitutes your identity defines your influence. If you want to live as a natural person, you will be limited to natural influence. If you want to use your own intellect and your own thinking, your own history and your life experience, and you would like to solve life's problems that way, that's okay. And there is a place for that. As I say, rather be smart than stupid. The point is this: if you're a kingdom citizen, what constitutes your identity as a kingdom citizen is authority and power. And so when you go into a situation as a kingdom citizen, what constitutes your identity is authority and power. If you want to live from a supernatural perspective, if you want to have supernatural influence in your life situations, you're going to have to make a shift from living like a natural person to living like a spiritual person, from living like a natural person to living like a person who has kingdom citizenship. Jesus has been baptized by John, and the Holy Spirit descended on him. And a voice from heaven came and it said, "This is my son in whom I'm well pleased." It affirmed his identity of who he was. And he went into the desert and he was tempted by the devil 40 days. He came out of the desert and he came down to Nazareth. And he went to the temple. He was raised in Nazareth. Nazareth was his hometown. Nazareth was like Warrington. You walk up and down the streets of Warrington and everybody goes, "Oh, hi, I know you." People are like, "Oh, hi, Jesus." We don't think that way. But it was. That's who he was. He was Joseph's son. He walked up and down the street and people knew him. There was Jesus. He walks into the temple and he takes the scrolls and he begins to read. And he reads Isaiah chapter 61. You need to go and read Isaiah chapter 61. Make a note of that. Isaiah 61 is important because what Jesus was saying was he was talking about his identity. We have a paraphrased version in here. I'm not sure that he didn't read the whole of Isaiah chapter 61. The point is this: Jesus was about to launch his ministry. This was his launching pad for his ministry. And he sat down and he read about the Spirit is upon me and he has anointed me to do the following. And he starts listing all of the things. And with people who were listening to him and they looked at him. And when he had finished, he said, "This day is the scripture fulfilled in your ears." At that point, Jesus was crossing a threshold. At that point, what Jesus was saying to them was this: "You've known me as Jesus of Nazareth. Now I'm going to introduce you to Jesus the Christ. You've known me as Jesus, the son of Joseph. Now I'm going to introduce you to Jesus the Messiah, the anointed one." You see, Jesus lived as the Word made flesh. He was God and man in one. And what he was saying to them was, I'm in the process of launching my ministry. I'm in the process of going somewhere because I know what's on the inside of me. And so everything that you've known about me that may have defined me up until this point, the fact that I'm the person who lived down the road, that I helped my father during summer vacation with his woodworking, that all the things that you've known about me are fine and good, but I want you to know something right now. I'm stepping into a new part of who I am, and I'm going to introduce you to a new part of my identity. And it's called the anointed part. And what he was saying to them was this. He was launching his ministry. He was saying to them, with the new part comes authority, and as a result of the authority comes power. When you have authority and when you have power, you are positioned for influence. The reason he was reading all those things that he was able to do is what he was saying to them is, the Jesus that you knew is still a part of who I am, but I'm going to be living from a different place, and I'm going to be living from the God on the inside of me, and that's what's going to be visible to you. What I'm going to model for you is what it's like to live life with God on the inside of you. It was the same man living from a different place. What happened when you got born again? When you got born again, the life of God came and dwelt on the inside of you. God took on flesh. The thing about it is we spend so much of our life living in the natural man, but there comes a time, there comes a point in our life where we have to sit and say, I'm going to cross the threshold, and no longer am I going to be the person who's known by who I was. I'm not going to be the person who's known by my natural. I'm not going to be the person who's been labeled as the person I used to be. I'm going to cross the threshold, and I'm going to become Gavin, a new creation in Christ. I'm going to live from a new place as my kingdom citizenship, because it's going to entitle me to things that I'm never going to get by living as a natural man. The invitation is to step into your identity. You are the same person, but you can elect where you decide to live. You can live as a natural man, or you can live as a new creation in Christ. Both of them are separate places. Both of them come with different offerings. The reason that Jesus stepped into the Anointed One was because he understood that if he wanted to have influence in life, he had to have access to authority and he had to have access to power. And as he walked around, he modeled for us what it was to live as an overcomer, what it was to be a kingdom citizen and what that looked like, and how we were to live life accordingly. As a born-again person, the invitation is always to step out of the natural and to step into your kingdom citizenship and to live from a different place. Part of the reason that we struggle with so many of the things that we have in life is because we're not living from the right place. Part of the challenge with it is you can be born again and still live from your old man. Anytime you live out of your natural man as a recreated being, you always compromise the influence of your kingdom identity. Anytime you live out of the natural, you compromise your ability to have influence in that situation because you're living out of the wrong place. You're living out of the natural. Old things are passed away. Behold, all things have become new. There is a revelation to that. What it's saying is this: the way that you used to live, the way that you used to behave, the way that you used to think, the way that you used to interact, the way that you used to consider stuff, the way that you used to visualize your future, all of those things need to change because they're old. What he's saying is, step over the threshold. I want you to step into what it means to be a kingdom citizen. When you allow yourself to be recreated, when you allow your mind to be renewed, what you're doing is you're stepping into your new identity of who he's called you to do. The reason, and what he's called you to do, the reason he's doing that is because you're to have influence in life. How do I establish God's kingdom in my life? I need to have power and authority. Because when I have power and authority, I can take the truths of the kingdom and I can take them and I can introduce them into my life situation. Life always wants to label you. Your natural is always going to want to label you. That's the person who's always afraid. That's the person who's got an attitude. That's the person who's pessimistic. That's the person who's judgmental. Our natural always wants to label us. And as long as we allow our natural to label us, what ends up happening is we take our authority and what we do is we end up giving it over to whatever the label might be. And the result of that is we end up enslaved to that. You might be a woman out here and you're involved in an unhealthy relationship. The problem is this. If you tackle it from the natural, very often what it tells you is this: you can't afford to have any changes in here. Be careful that you don't rock the boat. Don't stand up for anything. Don't stand up for truth, because he's the provider. The seduction is to always steal your authority by saying to you, you know what? If you view him as your provider in life, what ends up happening is you deal with a whole bunch of stuff that you should never deal with. Because you're living from the paradigm of my old man. But when I step across the threshold and I move into the place of my new identity, all of a sudden the Father says, you know what? I love you so much. Do you know how much I love you? And because I love you so much, I will care for you and I will take care of you. And I want you to know something. I will be your provider. He didn't say it's going to be easy. But he said, I will be there for you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. And I will always. What is he doing? He's giving you what it takes to have the wherewithal to take back your confidence, to step across that threshold, and to change the paradigm of your life. Sometimes we need to change the playing field of this context in which we find ourselves. Because we've allowed things to carry on, because we've abdicated our responsibility for one reason or another. We've been labeled in one way or another. We've let go of our authority. And when you get your authority back and you stand back there, all of a sudden things begin to shift. Because suddenly I'm not prone to have to need you in my life. Now I can decide whether I want you in my life. That's a big shift. But you have to have the confidence to do that. And you're never going to find that confidence living in your natural. The problem with the natural is that it's always going to make you self-aware. The natural man is always going to tell you about how limited you are, how you don't have the ability, how you're not all that good looking. Actually, you're not all that smart either. It's always going to make you self-conscious. And you know what happens to people who are self-conscious? They become judgmental. They hand over their authority to judgment. And everything is always critical of everybody else. Why? Because I'm so self-conscious of who I am, I can't afford for you to be better than me. God wants you to take back your authority and to step across the threshold and sit and say, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be defined by the way my natural sees me. He created me and I'm unique, and he made me perfectly just the way that I should be. When you allow your identity to be defined by your kingdom citizenship as opposed to your natural being, it changes the paradigm of your life. And when it changes the paradigm of your life, all of a sudden it shifts the playing field. When you're not dependent on people, when you're not dependent on circumstances, when you're not dependent on your environment, things change and happen. And all of a sudden you prepare to do things and you have a confidence that you never had before. And I'm running out of time. Life is a decision. Life is a choice. God gave you free will, and it came with responsibility. You can choose to do anything that you choose how you want to live your life. You make a decision about how it is that you want to live. You want to get practical about things? This is where you get practical. I've set before you life and death, blessings and cursings. Choose life. What was he saying? Yes, I need you to be born again. Yes, I want my life to come on the inside of you. Yes, I want you to accept me. Yes, I want you to be made brand new, and old things are passed away, but all things are becoming new. And because all things are becoming new, as you walk forward into your future, you sit and say, I'm going to make choices in my life, and I'm going to make decisions in my life that reflect life. When you choose and make decisions out of your kingdom citizenship, you make healthy decisions. When you make decisions out of your natural person, you're always limited. I hope I read the situation right, because I'm relying on my intellect to give me the necessary information to decide what it is that I need to do. I hope I'm reading it right. I hope my feelings are accurate. I feel this, so I'm going to do this. I feel that, so I'm going to behave that way. In our natural person, we're always compromised because we don't know full truth. And the influences that we're having into our life that are flowing in are coming in from the natural. And we're making a judgment call based on that as to what we need to do. Romans chapter 8 verse 1 says, if you live by the flesh, it is death. If you live by the Spirit, essentially, it's life. What is it saying? It's drawing a parallel. What it's saying is, I need you to identify the fact that there is a threshold between your natural man and your kingdom citizenship. And what it's saying is you're going to have to make a decision about how you want to engage life. Every single time you have an opportunity to deal with a circumstance in your life, every time you have to make a decision about which way to go forward, every time somebody speaks to you and you're going to respond to them, where are you responding from? From who I am or from my kingdom citizenship? Because what you say and how you see and the decisions you make will be life when you make it out of your kingdom citizenship. What God always says to you is this: I'm going to give you what you need to be an overcomer in life. Your natural man is always going to make you fearful. It's always going to tell you what will people think. What's going to happen if the wheels come off? What happens if things don't work out the way that you imagine? What's going to happen if somebody says something about you? It's always going to make you tentative. It's always going to make you negative. It's always going to make you judgmental. It's always going to make you suspicious. It's always going to put you at a place where you're having a look at life from a negative bias. And the result of that is we become paralyzed and we never step into opportunities that are created for us because we live a compromised existence. But your kingdom citizenship is not about that. I'm more than a conqueror through him. He has given me all things that pertain to life and godliness. What is he saying? God is the one who is your biggest champion. God is saying, go out and make it happen. God is the one who's saying, I want you to be courageous. God is the one who's saying, you know what? Your future is there to be grabbed. Go and make something of it. God is the one who's sitting saying, let me inform your vision, your attitude, your disposition, your languaging, the way that you speak. Because when you approach life from his perspective as a kingdom citizen, it changes everything. It changes everything. Part of the challenge with living as a natural man is that my natural man always wants to do what I did yesterday, but it wants a better tomorrow. Your natural man has conditioned you so that you can live life without thinking. Somebody says something and you'll respond like that. There's an issue, what's your natural response? Speak to people around you because they'll tell you what your reputation is. You want to know what your natural response is? They'll talk to you about it. Are you brave? What's the point? The point is our natural man has conditioned us in a way that we can approach life and we respond to life in ways that are so conditioned, but they're not necessarily reflective of kingdom living. What God is saying, choose life. The invitation is to be intentional. The invitation is to sit and say, don't live by default. Make a decision about how it is that you want to approach life. You want to change your future. You want to change the trajectory of your life. You want to change what tomorrow is going to look like. Start living from your kingdom citizenship. Introduce the world to who he created you to be. Cross the threshold. Step into authority. Step into his power. Know what it is to be a kingdom citizen who sits and moves into places and looks for influence. It starts in who you are. Don't be afraid of whatever situation you find yourself in right now. Don't be afraid of the circumstances that are in your life right at the moment, because they're introducing you to who he called you to be. You don't know who he called you to be if you didn't have an opportunity to step into that. He's calling you to step into something. And he needs to create. I'm not saying it comes from God, but what is created as a result of what life throws at you is a stepping stone to step into something new. 2018 can be your best year ever. But I will tell you this with a caution. Some spiritual truths are not always easy. And don't be careful of preachers who stand and tell you trivialities and superficial truths. It's not that easy. And I'll tell you why it's not that easy. Because when you step across that threshold into who he's called you to be, It's going to change stuff in your life. Yes, the promise is there. Yes, the opportunity is there. Yes, things will change in your life. Yes, you will have access to power and to influence and to authority. Those things will come, but it comes with a responsibility on you. The thing about it is this: when you're living in your natural man, what informs your natural man is everything that I find in my world. And the way that it influences my psychology and the way that I think and the way that I feel, it all comes from here. But when you step into your kingdom citizenship, all of a sudden you need influence here. And influence in your kingdom realm comes from relationship with Him. If you don't have relationship with Him, you don't have definition as to what it means to be a kingdom citizen. All I do is I wear a label that I'm born again. And I got to be able to fill in the and. Because if you can't fill in the and, the problem with it is, as you go through life and circumstances come against you, circumstances are going to ask you the question, and who do you say that I am? When we can't answer it, the problem with it is we're compromised. What do you have your authority in? Where is your trust? Where is your confidence? It puts responsibility on us. It puts responsibility on us because we've lived life for such an extended period of time out of this paradigm, out of our human paradigm. We're so used to the second nature stuff that when we start doing stuff of the kingdom, it feels uncomfortable at first. And it feels a little bit awkward. I don't speak like that. I don't behave like that. But I'm being intentional. And what I'm doing is I'm learning what it is to be a kingdom citizen. And I'm allowing it to influence me in a pragmatic way every single opportunity that I get. Walking into your citizenship may not be easy, but living with your current circumstances is even worse. When you walk into it, it'll change your life. It'll transform your life. The opportunity exists. The invitation is extended. It's up to you to decide what you want to do. Make 2018 the best year ever. Step across the threshold. Take back your authority. Don't allow the world, don't allow your natural man to label you. Grab a hold of those things. Go out there knowing that He is with you. He will never forsake you. He's made you the head and not the tail, that you're an overcomer. You're above and not beneath. He has given you everything that pertains to life and godliness, and He's inviting you into it. Be intentional in the way that you deal with life. If you leave it to chance, there's no decision. You'll default to your human man. Be intentional about it.